Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Zach Kennedy, home marketing specialist and realtor in Birmingham, Alabama. Today I am at Clemens Park in Gardendale, Alabama. Just killing some time waiting on an inspection for one of my buyers, and just thought I'd come to the park and share with you guys a little bit about the real estate market, kind of like we did a couple weeks ago. Thank you for the overwhelming response that we got on that video. So welcome to all the new subscribers to the channel. We just kind of talked about buying new construction in 2024. For today's video, I kind of want to just give you a real estate market update for Alabama, as well as nationally, just kind of tell you what's going on. If you're considering buying a home or selling a home in the next 6 days or 6 years, it's really important to understand what's happening in the market. For now, I have got 2 buyers under contract. One is in Pinson and one is in Warrior. Just had a deal fall apart yesterday in Hoover because my buyer was offered a really great job to stay in California. So that's life, it happens. I'm happy for him that he's got a new opportunity, and so that one fell apart. But for all 3 of those, we got the properties under contract for under asking price. So I guess what I'll title this video is really the reemergence of sanity in the real estate market. It's been wild since 2020, but what we're starting to see are properties sitting on the market longer. First off, more inventory is on the market than has been in many years. And there are a lot of people that are getting really good deals right now. So I've got one buyer that's under contract, $2,000 under the list price. I've got another under contract for about $15,000 under the list price. And the Hoover deal that I had that we signed a mutual release on yesterday, he actually got that property under contract for $50,000 under the list price. So I have a listing as well that went under contract in about a week. That one did go under contract under the asking price, but it's an investment property. It's a total gut job. So that was a cash deal with no contingencies. We were about $15,000 under the list price, but I was pretty aggressive about it because I knew it would probably go under contract quickly from an investor that would likely be a cash buyer. And my seller is in a situation where she really needed to sell the home fast. She petitioned a few companies to do kind of like a cash offer situation. But what she kind of got herself into was she worked with a company that will offer to purchase your home for cash and do a quick sale potentially. But what this company does is a practice called wholesaling. And so this company put a purchase contract on her house. But what wholesalers do is they then take that contract, hold it. They won't put a close date, be like to be determined or something like that. And they'll go out and they will search for other investors that want the contract, and then they'll charge a fee for that other investor to buy the contract. And so this can be a really risky route to go because you're not sure who's actually going to purchase your house, or if that investor is actually going to be able to sell the contract. And so this is why they don't put a closing date on the contract or say it's to be determined or something like that. It's because they're going out, they're making phone calls to try to sell this contract. And so it can work for some people, but it's all dependent on the property. For this situation, they just kind of drug it out and kept kind of stringing her along to the point where she was ready to back out of the agreement she had with them. So I just called the company and asked them to just go ahead and release her from that purchase agreement. Fortunately, they did, and we got it under contract a couple hours later. So just kind of nationally, what we're seeing right now is inventories. And keep in mind, real estate is regional, so what happens in Alabama may be completely different than what's happening in the Northeast or the West, but nationally, inventory is up. And so when you have an increase in inventory like that, there is a possibility that prices will soften. And so where we're seeing a ton of inventory hit the market, new active listings, is in Florida. And so there's a chance that home prices in Florida are going to soften or decrease as there's more properties on the market, more choices for buyers. So in Alabama, at the state of Alabama, it is up in inventory 27% since 2023. So there's just been a massive influx in inventory. Choices for buyers in the state of Alabama. Inventory is also up about 25% in the city of Birmingham. And we are seeing some price softening in Jefferson County. Jefferson County was down about 1% in home prices year over year. Shelby County is holding on. They're at about 0.1% up. So home prices in Shelby County, Alabama are still holding on, relatively flat. But as I anticipate, we see more inventory hitting the market as spring really starts to heat up. I think there's a possibility that you could see prices start to soften. At least in my case, I had 3 buyers that are all under contract, 2 now that are all under contract for less than the listing price. And the sellers have been pretty accommodating for repairs that we've requested. One of my buyers, he's getting a little over $12,000 from the seller for his property, so he's under contract for less than the asking price, and he's getting $12,000 from the seller, $5,000 for his closing costs, and about $7,600 for money in lieu of the seller doing repairs. So he's getting a phenomenal deal that should close on the 15th. I've got another guy that we sent a pretty long list of repairs that the buyer wanted done, and the seller is accommodating to about 90% of it. That's where I'm actually going right now to do the inspection. So let me kind of go through some stats for you. All these stats I post on my Instagram page. So if you don't follow me on Instagram, that is a platform where it's a bit easier for me to post daily, kind of update stats, what's happening in the market, trends. This is for both, my local area and also nationally. My handle on Instagram is at the Zach Kennedy, ZACKENNEDY, at the Zach Kennedy. So go follow me on Instagram if you want to see those stats coming in daily. So it's just a lot easier on that platform. But go over some things that I posted recently. So is the Birmingham Hoover metro real estate market overvalued? According to Moody's Analytics, the market for Birmingham Hoover Metro reached its peak in the second quarter of 2022. In the second quarter of 2022, Moody's Analytics gauged the Birmingham Hoover Metro market as 19.4% overvalued. And now in Q4 2023, so about a year and a half later, it's down to 12.5% overvalued. So that's a difference of about 7%. It's a decrease of 7% in the overvaluation of the Birmingham Hoover market. For Alabama, the most overvalued markets according to Moody's is Florence, Muscle Shoals, Huntsville, and Gadsden. So when I posted this, I had a friend reach out that is in the market. She went to an open house in Homewood recently, so she's ready to begin her search. And she asked me if, based on Moody's Analytics calling the market overvalued, does that mean that prices are going to go down? And I think what's important to realize with the real estate market and also inflation, which is having a huge effect on people's lives and what they can afford, so affordability of homes, but also mortgage interest rates, which are kind of starting to solidify between 6 and 7, is that it's not necessarily that prices are going to go down across the board. In some markets there are, certainly the overinflated markets of like places in California and Arizona and Boise, Idaho and Austin, Texas. For those, prices have corrected. because they shot up so much, they're coming back down now as more inventory has hit the market. And so for other areas, kind of your more balanced areas, it's not necessarily that prices are going to shoot down. It's just that the rate of price increases is slowing. So 2022, when we kind of saw the peak nationwide, home prices are in some areas still increasing because there is lower inventory than there is demand for homes. And so it's not that prices are going to just completely fall off the earth. It's just that the rate of increase in prices has slowed down. And as more inventory stays on the market, as people start to, what is really happening in 2024, which I think is going to be a good year, is that people have kind of accepted that mortgage rates are what they are. Now, the Fed recently announced that they were going to do 3 rate cuts in 2024. People like me, like that just kind of drives me crazy, because the question is why? Like, what are you basing that off of? What inflation data are you seeing that's convincing you right now is a good time to drop the Fed funds rate, which directly affects mortgage interest rates? Now that the Fed has announced that they're going to drop rates 3 times for whatever reason, what you're most likely going to see is another increase in people in the market. So when the Fed drops the Fed funds rate, which is like the overnight fee that banks charge one another to borrow money, that affects mortgage interest rates. When mortgage interest rates decrease, then it's cheaper to borrow money. It's cheaper for individuals and institutions to borrow money. And so that will increase the margins that they get when they invest in real estate. And so what you see is more dollars, more currency units enter the market. And when you have more dollars chasing fewer goods, that raises prices. So, I'm not really sure what the Fed is seeing. Maybe it's a legacy thing, maybe it's a political thing, I'm not really sure. But I'm not sure what they're seeing that's causing them to say, okay, now is a really good time to cut rates. So I think what might happen is we've started to kind of see this reemergence of sanity, a bit more balance in the inventory that is available, people having choices. And so that has caused prices to start to flatten a little bit. But if we get rate cuts, then more people are going to be able to borrow because money's cheaper, and we'll kind of be right back into that place we were, where the only natural occurrence there is prices increase because there's going to be more competition. Let's see. So Hoover, Alabama was recently named a top city for financial prosperity. The median household income in Hoover, Alabama is $103,000. That's median household income. The 5-year percentage change in population is nearly 9%. 5-year percentage change in housing units is only 3%. So we've got more people moving into Hoover than the rate of increase in housing. It's just driving prices up, or just keeping prices higher. A low unemployment rate of just 2.5%. And I thought this was interesting that 52% of businesses operating in Hoover have been operating for greater than 10 years. So that was Money Geek that put that report out. So if you're interested in the Birmingham market, I would really start with Hoover. It's the largest suburb of Birmingham. They call it the Birmingham Hoover metro area. Hoover offers a lot of variety for what you're looking for, whether you're looking for a starter home, or you're looking for a move-up home, or condos and townhomes. Hoover offers quite a lot. There's a lot of job opportunities in Hoover, and it's growing really fast. If you want a more in-depth look at the trends and data for Hoover, Alabama, go back to a couple of videos that I did with Mayor Frank Mercado in his State of the City address at the beginning of the year, where I'll kind of lay out all of the new things that are coming to Hoover and what's working there. So if you're looking in the Birmingham area, or thinking about moving here, that would be a good place to start. Okay, speaking of interest rates, let me give you the percentage share of outstanding mortgages by interest rate. So these are current mortgages that people have, sorted by interest rate. So 86.6% of outstanding mortgages right now have a rate below 6%. So that's 86% of people have a mortgage interest rate that's lower than 6%. And what we call kind of the state of where we're in right now, what they're calling is the rate lock effect. And so that's just another contributor to home prices staying a bit more elevated, or at least not softening at the rate that they were, because nearly 9 out of 10 people have a mortgage interest rate below 6%. So it doesn't make sense for that switching cost. Now, the reason that you're still seeing the market turn over the way it is because life events are the primary force for why people move. And there's really 5 D's for those life events. It's death and divorce, diplomas, or kids graduating high school, graduating college, empty nest parents that want to sell, downsize. You got diapers, people that are having kids, and you got diamonds, people that are getting engaged and getting married. So those are the 5 reasons why people tend to move, those life events. And so those are the people that are keeping the market churning right now. But for people that don't have those life events, simply want to move, it doesn't make a lot of sense if they're sitting at a mortgage interest rate that's 2 or 3 or 4 or 5% to switch those costs to sell and then buy into 6%, maybe even 7%. So those switching costs are what is keeping the market a bit more stagnant than it otherwise would be. Let me give you the percentage. So the percentage of people that have less than a 3% interest rate is 22%. So nearly 1 in 4 have less than a 3% interest rate, which is insane. Between 3 to 3.99, so a 3% interest rate, that's about 35% of people. So that the most people over one out of 3 have a 3% interest rate. So interest rates right now are around 6%, 6.5%. And so for them to move and sell their house and buy another, let alone doubling their interest rate. 4%, so that's about 19% to 18.9% people have a 4% interest rate. 5%, that is 9.6% of people. So about 1 in 10 have a 5% interest rate. And then 13.5% have greater than a 6. So the vast majority of homeowners right now with outstanding mortgages have a 3% interest rate. So what are the upcoming cuts going to do to the interest rate? Is it going to drop it down into the 5s? That's a possibility for some. Low 6s is probably the more accurate, but you could get high 5s as well. But I just don't know. I don't see us ever getting to 4% ever again. So congrats to the folks that did it. But I don't know that we're going to see 4%. But again, all this can change because of inventory numbers. I have this on the story too. February 2024 inventory in the U.S. is up 11% over February 2023. So year over year in February, the inventory is up 11%. However, the important thing to keep in mind is that inventory is still down 17% from February 2019. So up 11% year over year in February, but still down 17 from pre-pandemic. So we're not even close to the level of inventory that we had pre-pandemic, but that number is growing. Okay, so is Birmingham a boom or a zoom for single-family home investments? Parcel Labs measures the gross yield of 52 major single-family rental markets. So lately, for the past 3 or 4 months, I've had several people from out of state reach out to me and say that they want to buy an investment property, like a single-family home in the Birmingham area. They want to invest in Birmingham. And what I tell people is, in 2022, when things kind of peaked out, that was a really, really good time for investors, and they came and just absolutely ran what that did was that caused prices for those investment properties. I'm talking houses in like the ones and twos and low threes that are like brick 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom houses. So like your institutional buyers, your big real estate investment trust came through Birmingham and hit a lot of the different areas and drove the home prices up. Did a lot of flips, but also a lot of buy and holds too. So that available inventory for single family is more pushed to like minimum 200,000. You can find some deals around 150, but it's going to need some work, and it might not be in the most desirable area. So I've got two people right now that are kind of seriously looking that I'm sending properties to, and those one is in Dallas and one is in Maryland. And what I've had to tell them, they both kind of tell me that, well, I got around 150,000, and 150,000, if you want to buy an investment property here, is going to get you something that requires a tremendous amount of work, or is in an area that you may find it to be more difficult to find a consistent renter, or at least a renter that has really good financial standing that you can trust if you're wanting to do something long term. Now I have something for a short-term rental that is in downtown Birmingham, so if you're interested, hit me up, but that one's going to be like 250,000. So if you've got 200 to play with, you can still find a good deal, but under 200,000 is going to be really, really tough. If you have 250 to low 300s, you can get something that's going to be in really good shape and in a really good area. But under 250, it's going to be really case by case, street by street. So I know there's a lot of people that I see in comments on different videos on YouTube and other platforms that have this idea in their head that the reason that housing is so unaffordable right now is because all of these institutional buyers came in when mortgage rates were 2% and money was super cheap. They pull all their money in and buy up all these properties and drive up the sales prices of houses such that it locks a lot of people out. But the important thing to realize is that it's okay to be angry and upset that housing has increased in price, but you need to make sure that you don't misplace your anger. So when the pandemic hit and there was all this fuss and people saying we need to lock everybody in their homes and we need to you can't go out anywhere, what changed everything was the response from your government and the response from the Fed. So the assumption was that COVID hits, everything shuts down, and so the economy is going to shrink, and so we need to infuse the economy with these currency units. And so the government hands out stimulus checks and the Fed drops rates to basically zero, and so interest rates plummet and it becomes really cheap to borrow money. And so what BlackRock and these institutional buyers and these REITs did was they pull all their money and they start buying up a lot of property. That's just the response that they had to the market conditions that we were in. So you have to realize that what happened was simply a response to money being incredibly cheap. So I think it's short-sighted to be mad at people that just took advantage of the situation. There was a lot of mistakes made, and it's okay to be scared at an illness. So I'm certainly not diminishing the impact of the illness on people's lives, but just understand that the reason that prices for like entry-level homes is so much higher now is because you slash interest rates, you make money super cheap. Obviously people that are economically intelligent are going to take advantage of that, and that's what drove the prices up. So just kind of wanted to get on my soapbox about that. So back to investments. The best places for yields right now for single family investments are Cleveland, Ohio, Buffalo, New York, is the Northeast markets and some of the Midwest like Chicago and Pennsylvania, which suffered greatly during the pandemic from people moving out. Lots of people moved out of the Northeast, and what you're seeing is a reemergence of those markets. And so those markets in the Northeast, if you're looking to invest, are probably where I would start. That's where your better yields are. Some of the worst yields are San Jose, California, San Francisco, California, Los Angeles, California, Salt Lake City, Utah, and San Diego, California. All of those, what Parcel Labs is calling the gross yield percentage, all of those at the bottom are 3% to low 4%. All of those in the Northeast that are the top are in the mid 7s to mid 8s. And Birmingham's gross yield percentage is about 6.1, so kind of right in the middle. So it's certainly not a bad place to invest. There's a lot of really good activity in the Birmingham market. You just have to hire someone that knows the area and can make recommendations on where to look and where not to look, and what kind of budget you need to play with, and also what kind of like a good projection on the type of renter that you would want to rent to, whether that's long-term or short-term. All right, so property taxes. Alabama has the second lowest median annual property tax in the U.S. And when I work with a lot of people that watch on YouTube and are considering moving to Birmingham, and one of the primary motivators for them moving to Alabama is that we have such low property taxes. So like people like in California that come here and say, so our median annual property tax in Alabama is $726. The highest is New Jersey at $8,500 a year. So we're $8,000 median, $8,000 cheaper on property taxes than New Jersey. So, but the interesting thing is, over the last 4 years, the rate of increase in property taxes for Alabama is just shy of 30%. And that is 6th highest among all states. So we have the second lowest median annual property tax, but the rate of increase of that property tax is 6th highest in the U.S. So still far below, far below the top range for annual property taxes, but that rate is increasing. And that happens with turnover, with sales. If you sell your house, your property taxes tend to increase. And that's just a local level thing too. Yeah, and again, I just want to hit on investments again, just because I'm getting so many people that are calling wanting to invest here. So the purchase to sale ratio. So the number of investors that purchased versus sale. So in July 2023, that number was 1.98, that ratio. So investors in July 2023 were buying twice as many houses as they were selling. And that number has come down to 0.63 as of January 2024. So now more investors are selling than are buying. Some of that has to do with flip properties, but what that shows you is that there has been a pullback in investing in Birmingham from the peak. Now, we were a very, very popular place for investors in 2021 and 2022. So there's a chance that this is just kind of coming back to equilibrium. But that just goes to show you, like, is Birmingham a boom or a zoom for single family home investors? Just goes to show you that the rate of investment in Birmingham is down. In fact, it's one of the top 11 U.S. metros where investors are shedding inventory. Okay, home insurance. Home insurance costs as the share of a borrower's monthly income by state. So home insurance has skyrocketed. I mean, there's just no doubt about it. Certainly in places like Florida and California, where some companies are not even writing new policies in those states. For the South is where most of the insurance costs take up the most share of people's monthly expenses. And some of that has to do, it's a little bit, it's lower in some areas like California. California has a cap on how property taxes can increase. I forget the number of the proposition that is. But also the salaries are much higher in states like California. So the highest in the country is Louisiana at 3.3%. That is a mix of lower annual incomes and also home insurance costs because of natural disasters. Oklahoma is at 3%. Mississippi, Kansas, and Nebraska are at 2.6. Missouri, Alabama, and Florida are at 2.3%. So those aren't huge numbers, but those numbers are increasing. So that's just a percentage share of your monthly income that has to go towards your home insurance. So home insurance costs are obviously higher in places that are on the coast, places that are prone to earthquakes, such as out on the West Coast. So still, it's not breaking people's backs in the state of Alabama, home insurance costs, because we're not in the eye of danger quite like a Florida, where like a hurricane hits the coast. There's going to be a tremendous amount of damage because a ton of people and development has taken place on the coast. For Alabama, we have to deal with hurricanes kind of in the lower half of the state, a lot of rain up in the middle to the north half of the state in Alabama. Mainly it's tornadoes, and the springtime and right around now is where when you have that hot air coming in over the cool air, that's where you get a lot of tornadoes. And so this is the time of year where that becomes a problem. And quickly I'll just kind of go over for anybody that's curious about the National Association of Realtors lawsuit that took place. I was curious if I should even bother talking about it. But essentially, in the state of Missouri, there was an attorney, rambled a lot of home buyers up, and sued the National Association of Realtors and several real estate brokerages, saying that there was price fixing going on for companies and agents to charge sellers 6%. And what you've seen, if you've looked at CNN or Fox or ABC and all those, is that there's a really consistent headline that gone is the 6% commission. Gone is the 6% commission. The 6% commission is no more. 6% commission is dead. And I just wanted to quickly address that 6% was never, I've been selling since 2019, 6% was never the mandatory commission to sell your house. There's no such thing as a mandatory commission. It's, you sold your house and you listed it for 6%, you did that because that was a negotiation between you and your agent. You could have listed it for whatever you wanted to list it for. You could have offered whatever commission you wanted to offer. And if you didn't know that, that's because your agent didn't explain it to you well, and maybe because you didn't hire a really good or truthful or transparent agent. So that's kind of on you, because you had the opportunity to ask around for good agents to do your own research. But the 6% was never any kind of standard commission. What do I think happens with commissions now? I mean, I just don't see this having a huge impact on the industry, because the cream always rises to the top, and the best agents are the ones that are going to collect the higher fees because they're worth it, and because people are willing to pay when they want a good job done. It's no different than a mechanic or a pipe fitter or a painter or a car dealership, or whatever industry you want to come up with. There are certain, like the better ones kind of tend to charge a bigger rate because it's worth it. It's more expensive because they do a good job, or they sell a good product, or they perform a good service. So, if you want to hire a real estate agent that is very good at what they do, very knowledgeable about the data and the trends and what's going on the macro level as well as what's going on the micro level, then it's going to be worth it to pay that agent what they're worth. So, if you're considering putting your house on the market, that's a conversation you need to have with your agent. Of course, it's our job to get you as much money as we possibly can. There's a lot of stuff going around about agents steering their buyers to different properties based on what was offered in the MLS, what was publicly offered. Because when we put a house in the market, we put what the buyer agent commission will be, what the listing agent is willing to offer the buyer agent. Because when people list their homes for sale, you list your homes for sale with a brokerage, a company. And then you have an agent that is a representative of that company to list your property. And they have a fee, and 99% of the time, they take that fee and they split it in half to attract a buyer. And so that is the thing that's going away. That is the biggest change that's happening as a result of this lawsuit, is that we can no longer put in the MLS what that offering to the buyer agent is. I have never found myself in a situation where I was motivated to show a different house to a buyer or steer a buyer away from a specific house because the commissions were different. Because the commissions are relatively consistent in what's being offered. But, at the end of the day, I just want a happy buyer, because, hopefully the idea is that you help one person and they tell 5 people how much you helped them. And so if you screw somebody over or steer them away from a property they want and they find out, they're never going to tell anybody to work with you. And so you're never going to get those 5, those 10, those 15 additional people. So it's like, honestly, it's offensive to see all the news going around that agents are steering their buyers to different properties based on the commission that's being offered. I just think that's absolutely crazy. I'd love to see some data on it, because I think it's just people throwing out a bunch of BS. But yeah, I mean, on the whole, I don't see this changing much in the industry. There's been a lot of sea changes in this industry, even dating back to the 1900s. So like the National Association of Realtors was founded in 1908. And prior to that, anybody could say, yeah, I'm a broker, I'm a real estate agent, I'll work with you. There weren't any standards. And so when the National Association of Realtors was founded, that brought standards to the industry. You had to take a test, you had to learn, you had to educate, and you had to become certified in the practice in order to sell real estate. And when that happened, there were a lot of agents that completely freaked out because they thought, well, I've cornered the market in a certain area, and so now there are standards and there's going to be more people getting into the industry. Where really the biggest thing that's going to happen for the next 6 months to a year is a lot of agents are going to freak out, but at the end of the day, the consumer is going to win. That's what happens with every industry change that affects real estate, is that for the first 6 months to a year, a bunch of agents freak out and lose their minds. And then at the end of the day, the consumer has won. I guess the way the consumer is that it more forces agents to be more transparent about how they are paid than they have been. And again, if you've hired an agent that didn't explain that commission to list your property is completely negotiable, that's that agent's fault, and that's your fault for hiring a bad agent. And so hopefully what happens is that there's more transparency about the industry, but it's not going to kill our industry. I hope that a lot of agents don't leave the business because of this, because as somebody that lists properties, I have dependence on agents to bring buyers, because I don't have every buyer. And so I'd love to sell every listing that I have, and I definitely try to, because we live in a state that allows it if the contract is right for my client. But we should be willing to offer some sort of incentive, some sort of payment to a buyer's agent, because buyer's agents work their ass off. Like, I'm literally about to go to an inspection for my buyer because he's at work right now, and it's an extremely important inspection to figure out if this is a house that he actually wants. So buyer's agents, the vast majority of their time, they earn their payment it would be pretty detrimental to a lot of buyers that have to come out of pocket on that. There's going to be some news come out. I'm sure like maybe some mortgage companies will figure out a way to finance that charge into the loan. I'm not sure, but at the end of the day, I just really don't think it's that big a deal. So, all right, cool. Well, thank you guys for watching. I hope this walk and talk was useful. If you ever need anything, whether you're in Birmingham or elsewhere, just drop a question in the comment. Be sure to follow me on Instagram so you can see the data that I post at the Zach Kennedy. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you on the next one.